And he got that look of surprise. I hope that you all take time to say farewell to the Welbys. This will be their last service before heading down south to Kentucky. And so pray for them as they get ready to head that direction. And they're a blessing to us. And Kentucky's getting a mighty fine family. Open your Bibles this evening to Genesis chapter number 6. Genesis chapter number 6. And verse number 14. Genesis chapter number 6. Brother Butch, if we could get these, well, all my ushers are in the foyer. I need an usher. Usher. If I could get these lights on the platform out, the folks in the back can't see. Whatever switch it is to kill these. And don't kill Mrs. Wilson. All right. Let's go ahead and figure that out tonight, because folks have been saying, there we go. And it looks better because you can't see my face. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is fashioned which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories. Genesis chapter 6 and verse number 13 is where we're going to start tonight with a few simple words. And God said unto Noah. You know, it's not a lengthy phrase, but it's very important to note it, because when God speaks, I move. And that's something all of us need to adapt and adopt in our lives. When God speaks, I move. When He shuts a door, I stop. When He opens a door, I go through. If He shuts a door, I don't keep trying to jam the door open. Oh, well, if the Lord shuts the door, well, I just keep pushing until my will is what I can say God's will is. God spoke to Noah and gave him exactly what he needed to hear and what he needed to know in order to be completely obedient. The building of the ark has many important details. However, we must not miss what Noah did not forget. He did not forget God said. God said it, that finishes it. Used to be people would say, God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. No, you don't have any say in the matter. When Brother Porter was in the military, and they said, probably drop and give me 100. They probably never asked your opinion, did they? If you'd like to, would you like to drop and give me 100? Is that something that you would like to do? No, not today. He just turned British. But one way or another, he didn't have that option. Noah didn't have an option. Noah didn't have an option. Brother Randy in the Marine Corps, they ever ask you your opinion? Would you like to do this? Do they actually do that to wake people up? They do. I didn't know if it was just movies. And blow a little horn and say, everybody up if you feel like it. Is that how it works? No, that's not how it works. Tuck in your shirt if you'd like to. No. And that's not the way God was going to work. See, young people, you're growing up in a society where halfway is okay. Halfway is not obedience. And I want to grind it into parents' minds. To delay is to disobey. And the place should have rang out with it. To delay is to disobey. Go get this for me now. Okay. Yeah, it's my mom. That's disobedience. Now, God told Noah, and I'm getting so far ahead of my slides, but it's so hard. You study, and you've got all this information in your brain, and you've got to keep it contained to what's being seen. But God tells Noah to do it, and he just snaps to. He doesn't hesitate. Now remember, everyone else's imagination is evil continually. That imagination is continually bringing up evil. They're not thinking of good things and just things and things of good report. No, it's evil continually. But then there was Noah, and God spoke to him. Sometimes in life we find shortcuts to make tasks easier. Noah didn't. Sometimes we find that we grow weary and it's easier to quit than to go on. Boy, how many folks have we seen that? Oh, they did run well, but somebody hindered them. Maybe it was the race itself, and they found themselves sitting along the sidelines doing nothing for the cause of Christ. They quit everything that God had put before them. Every opportunity was thrown to the wind, and they quit. And then sometimes we fudge on the line, explaining away the unneeded principle, instruction, or guideline, only to make the process, and those things only make the process more cumbersome. All these guidelines and all these rules and all this just makes the process more cumbersome. Let's take every shortcut we can. If it's too hard, we quit. And then lastly, we're going to fudge on the lines. Well, we're to do a good job. We're to finish the job, but somebody always has to follow behind you and say, hey, this job wasn't finished again. I don't want to be that type of person with students or adults, either one. If I ask somebody to do it, I just expect the job to get done then. Not tomorrow, not when I go and check, not when I walk past it. I expect the job to be done without giving it a second glance. I should never have to check on staff or students at Calvary Christian School. Amen. And God shouldn't have to check up on Noah. God should be able to tell Noah, do the job and walk away. And that's the kind of testimony you ought to want to have before men. Because it's a reflection of your attitude towards God. Obey them that have the rule over you, for they watch for your soul. If you agree to work for $1, then work for the dollar. If you're going to work for it. If not, quit and get a different job. But don't shirk your responsibility. Don't be a shirker of your responsibility. And I tell young men, and Asa, don't forget this, it's hard to get a man's what? Trust. It's easy to lose a man's trust. And it's nearly impossible to get a man's trust again. Don't forget it. Brother Mark has you come out to the lodge and say, mow. And you did half the job and said, oh, he won't go back this far. He'll never notice. You lost his trust, and he'll probably never ask you to do it again. Because a lot of ladies are very forgiving. That's a great attribute that we need, men. But a lot of men aren't. And so when we look at a project, when it's said to be done, and God leads us, or even the authority that we've set ourselves under, say, get the job done. Even in the workplace, we ought to give it all we got. We go out to Glenburn Home, which I need to talk to you. I'm ready to go back. You kick that, whoever you have to kick out there, tell them I want to get back into the Glenburn Home. I miss all my friends out there. Totally understand why this COVID thing's nutty. But I tell you what, they have Volunteer Appreciation Day. And that whole room is full of people. And they just go in and do their jobs volunteering. You know, that's the type of person I want to be. If I volunteer for a job, I want to give it all I got and never shirk my responsibility. If I submit myself to an authority, I want to give it all I've got. And here, Noah didn't do either one. Noah didn't volunteer for the job. And you didn't say, I'd like to request this opportunity. God picked him and said, this is the way it is. You are the chosen to build the ark. I'm calling you. And Noah just stepped up. I'm going way too long on this point, but I think it's very, very important, especially in today's world, and the way people are today at giving everything half-hearted effort in the home and away. Sometimes we just quit not seeing the value of our involvement. And then we say, I give up because I'm not making a difference. In Genesis 6:13, and God said unto Noah, God gave Noah a call to service. Noah knew that this would be an extremely daunting task, that it would take spiritual, physical, and emotional strength of his entire family. His whole family was going to have to be on board. And that's not just a pun. His sons were going to have to help him. And it was going to take the dedication of the family. And parents, I hope that you have children that are a blessing and not a problem. You say, oh, you should never say a child's a problem. Sometimes children are a heaviness to their mother's heart. It's Bible. It's in Proverbs. They're a heaviness and burden, a brokenness to a father's heart. He's broken over the decisions they make. Here, Noah, and I probably have called him Moses tonight. Here, Noah comes up and he says, what? I am stepping in the gap. And my boys, they're coming with me. They all stepped up to do the job. Noah's success was found in faith, fellowship, and family. Faith, fellowship, and family. In faith, we know that Noah believed God. So many stop serving because they doubt his provision. They doubt his call, or they doubt his work. So he won't provide for me. Maybe he didn't call me. And sometimes they just doubt that the work is ever going to be a success. Noah did not undervalue the call or the servant who was called. The self-loathing attitude never overcame Noah when mistakes were made or things didn't fit right. Now think about building this ark. The old saying, I cut it 3 times and it's still too short. Can you imagine old Noah going out and he has the tree, he falls the tree, he starts making the boards that need to go on the ark. But you know he made mistakes. You know he made wrong cuts, and it wasn't that he had fine-looking tools like some of you do. He was doing it by hand. And he had this daunting task, and I'm sure there were times when he smashed his thumb with a hammer. And they used to joke, my dad called me lightning when I would drive nails, because I never hit the same place twice. Okay. Some of you are really sleepy today, or they're pretty bad jokes too. But it's still better than the chicken tender joke my daughter told. He kept serving though the task was daunting. Oh, Mrs. LaSure, can you imagine the room of trophies she has in heaven for dealing with children forever? Since the parting of the Red Sea. No, I'm joking. She did not. She was not there. She was not there. She probably has a room that glows of gold, crowns, and as you walk by it, or putting up with John Riker. it just beams as she walks by it when she gets there. But it's a daunting task sometimes. But you keep on going. How many of you say parenting can be a daunting task? 2, 3, 4, about everybody. It can be a very daunting task. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then the kids, I'm not touching her. I'm not touching her. In my family, every one of my children are different. One of them is a stirrer. One of them is a reactor. One of them is nuclear. And one of them's perfect, but she was my firstborn. And so, did you like that? Yeah, I thought you would. These two did it. All right, but there's a daunting task. Pick up your clothes. How many of you think you shouldn't have to tell your children to clean their room? You shouldn't have to tell them. Okay? How many of you don't have to tell your children to clean their room? I thought Mrs. Gamble was raising her hand. She just fanned it. Okay. Your room's so bad, Asa, she's about to black out back there. Here's a fun game we used to do. I'm going to get off subject because I can't get through it tonight anyway. We used to do this for teen group. It was called Videotape Your Bedroom. I would have them sign a little affidavit, made it real professional. Have them sign it and their parents sign it. Brother Mark knows because his girls were in on it. I'd sign my name. Liz Bartlow signed her name. Laura Bartlow signed her name. Dad signed. Mom signed. And then I would call them secretly. It might be a month. Okay, Brother Mark? Yep. Can you hide your key for me? Yeah, it'll be under the big rock. Oh, yeah, this is, Brother Bartlow, this is going to be good because they're not ready for it. And I just go find the key, unlock the door, go up to their bedroom and start videotaping it. Then the next youth group service. I'd walk in with a tape. Now that's back in the day, the big fat tapes. I'd walk in with the big fat tape and they'd all go, "Did he go to your house? Oh no, I hope he didn't go to my house. Oh no." And they'd all be squirming. I'd stick that videotape in and play their bedroom for the entire youth group. The most fun game I've ever played because they didn't videotape mine. So, sometimes it's a daunting task to continually tell someone. Thank the Lord. He didn't have to tell Noah, this is for your own good, Noah. Noah, did you work on the ark today? Did you work today, Noah? Noah. Hey, Noah, are you working on it? Well, I woke up a little late today, Lord. Lord, I had a little cough, and the COVID's going around. No. He just went on about his business. He did what had to be done. Was it daunting? Yes. Was it mundane? Yes. But he did the call without complaint. Just do it. And give it all you got. Faith in their ability will fail. Faith in the family will fail. Faith in the call and the God of the call will bring good success. Your family might fail you. Your flesh might fail you, but the call of God and the God of the call will never fail you. You give it all you got until you get to heaven. Just give it all you got until you get to heaven. In Joshua 1:8, the book of the law shall not depart out of the mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, and thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written, therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Give it all you got. Stay in the Word and do everything it says. I think Noah went over this rather vague blueprint. he was going to make sure it was done perfectly. Nobody there to tell him what to do. Nobody there to prod him. No one there to say, Noah, it's time to get up. Go get work. No. He's a man with a work ethic and called of God. He's one of these type of men to get to work early, rather rainy and leave late. Now they don't even let you clock in early. My boy goes to work early. He's got to sit in the break room until it's time to clock in. Don't understand it. Noah places faith in the what? Wow, that's a totally messed up sentence. Faith in what God had told him. He stayed the course by believing more in the call, the need, and the God of the call. Fellowship. Noah was obedient. Children, listen up. I'm going to step on the soapbox again. Noah was obedient. That is a simple sentence to say. However, often the bigger the task, the harder it is to obey and not to shirk. Noah obeyed despite the time frame, despite what others were doing, and despite the weight of the task. I hope that young people are listening. I'm going to give it to you again. Noah obeyed despite the time frame. This is going to take forever. 120 years at one job? Imagine the pin he would get. You know, they give you those pins for working 25 years. His would have been enormous. The time frame didn't stop him. Despite what others are doing, the others out there thinking of wickedness, doing wickedness. Now, most of us say, oh, they stood around mocking Noah, and I might have called him Moses again. They stood around mocking Noah. You know, that's not really in the Word of God. And you can't find that anywhere. We assume it maybe from picture Bibles, you know, pictures, and then we get this messed up idea of what the ark looks like in there, and that it was storming and the waves were 30 feet tall, and all this. These pictures that they put out there are amazing, but not biblically accurate. But old Noah comes out, and he builds this ark, and he didn't worry about what the others were doing. We do know that he was a preacher, but it doesn't say they mocked him for it. This is why God chose Noah. If Noah were to disobey in this great project, the gravity of doing so would have been great. However, all disobedience to God is sin. So we look at the gravity of this situation, and it was great. However, his disobedience would have been the same as Asa's disobedience. It's still sin. It's still sin. And so we ought to take that onto our shoulders, that when God says for an adult to do this, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. To not do so is to disobey God. To disobey God is to sin. Wives, be subject to your own husband. To be subject to your own husband is obedience. To not be subject to your own husband is sin. Disobedience, and disobedience is sin. It's sin. And so when we look at this, his obedience was so important, but so is ours. Our obedience to the Word, our obedience to God, our obedience to those who have authority over us. Noah's obedience to his call separated him from the people. He and his family would work together, fellowship together, worship together. Noah was at the helm. He led the family, and his children followed him as he followed God during the building of the ark. Parents, don't let anything take your children out of church. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. Hunting, not as important as being in the house of God. Hitting, kicking, smacking a ball, not as important as being in the house of God. Curling a big piece of concrete with guys with little brooms, not as important as being in the house of God. You ought to be in the house of God. Daddies, stand up and say, no, the church house, worshiping the Lord comes first. Because what you substitute the church for and going to church for might go a lot further with your children. You substitute and say it's okay to miss church to go, something I like to do, to go hunt or fish. It's okay for me to miss church to do that. Well, so now Sam says, well, it's okay to miss church for things I want to do. Where's the end of that? It's okay to miss church to sleep. It's okay to miss church to go to a family reunion, to go to a party. In other words, I decide when it's okay and when it's not okay. No, I'm not going to forsake the assembling of ourselves together as a manner of some is, period. If the church doors are open and I can be there, I'm there. If I'm sick in the hospital, I understand. What I'm talking about is willfully choosing something over the house of God. You better be careful. Because what you choose today, your children will be making their own choices one day, and they might choose 10 things instead of your one. Because their 10 things are just as important to them as your one was. We know of no other people of which Noah fellowshiped with other than his family. Can you imagine that? Get up in the morning with the family. Nobody else. You know, they might have walked by and looked. They might have mocked. We'll talk about this. We talk about them banging and scratching on the side of the ark for salvation. I don't know that they ever did that. People preach it all the time. But we know that one thing for sure, Noah and his family were in the right place when the rain came. We have to be careful that we don't substitute our Bible reading, our prayer, the church house, our family, our family's spiritual needs for something else. We shouldn't be more dedicated. My dad and I have always loved to hunt together. I shouldn't be more dedicated to hunting with my dad than I am to do spiritual things with my dad. I shouldn't be more dedicated to fishing with my son than I am to doing spiritual things with my son. You say, well, it's not that way in my life, and I suppose it isn't with anybody here at a Wednesday night crowd. But be careful that if the rain starts to come, the floods start coming, of course I'm talking figuratively, but when those troubles start falling, that your children are close, that they can trust dad, they can trust mom, that dad's with the Lord, he's standing firm, he's walking the right path, he's not turning to the left, he's not turning to the right, and we're always going to do right, and then when the rains come, we'll have safety, those rains of trouble. We have a lot more to cover. We won't cover those tonight. We had a good evening, though. Enjoyed the Toy Club Awards. Make sure that if you see the young people out there, that you tell them that you are proud of them and all those things. Parents, you might, if they didn't give you their awards, you might want to snag them as they come out, so the guys with the mowers don't find them here in the next few days. Young people, I appreciate you staying off the parking lot. I know you were working really diligently at that, and I do appreciate that. Just kind of stay. We've got 13 acres of play place and a lot of grass. And so if you can kind of keep that direction, we do have the volleyball courts up and the kickball field or whatever you want to call that. And you're welcome to use that. But please don't be out there while cars are moving on the parking lot. Let's bow our heads, have a word of prayer. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your